Welcome back, everyone. This week we are going to talk about solving radical equations. A radical equation is any equation that has a radical in it. So, for example, we could have something like the square root of x plus 7 is equal to 5. That is a radical equation because there is a radical on the left-hand side. The way we can solve this equation is simply square both sides of the equation to eliminate the radical. So if we square both sides, we end up with eliminating the radical on the left-hand side, so we get x plus 7. And the right-hand side is 5 times 5, or 25. And then it's really simple to solve from here. We just subtract 7 from both sides, and we end up with x is equal to 18. So that's the simplest form of a radical equation that we can solve. The next type of radical equation that we can solve is an equation where we have a radical that's not by itself. So for example, we could have something like 9 plus 2 times the square root of x plus 1 is equal to 17. So the first thing we have to do before we can try to eliminate the radical is we need to get the radical by itself, or we need to isolate the radical. So basically we're going to use opposite operations to get rid of the 9 by subtracting it from both sides. And then we have to get rid of the 2, and we're going to divide both sides by 2 to get rid of that. So we end up with the square root of x plus 1 is equal to 4, which is now very similar to the equation that we just did because we have a radical by itself on the left-hand side and a number on the right-hand side. So again, we're going to square both sides of the equation. And when we do so, we eliminate the radical on the left-hand side, and we square the 4 on the right-hand side. And then all we have to do is subtract 1 from both sides to get x equals 15. The last type of radical equation that we need to be able to solve is a radical equation that has radicals on both sides of the equal sign. So for example, we could have something like x plus 5, or the square root of x plus 5, is equal to the square root of 4x minus 4. Now, this may look more complex, but it's actually probably the simplest of the three to do. And the reason it's the simplest is because as long as the radicals are by themselves, which they are in this case, we can go ahead and just square both sides of the equation. And when we square both sides of the equation, we simply eliminate the radicals on both sides. So we end up with x plus 5 is equal to 4x minus 4. And then we can just solve this like we would any other equation. So we can subtract x from both sides to get the variables on one side. And then we can add 4 to both sides. So we end up with 9 is equal to 3x. And then we can divide by 3. So x is equal to 3.